Yes!
Hello everyone, and welcome to another brand new episode of The Completionist, in another entry in Disappointing Games Month. Welcome. Hi. Are you ready? You know what's coming, don't you? We all do. The Bioshock franchise is an incredible franchise that has been thriving for many, many years. But we all know that there's one outlier that disappointed everyone, and that, my friends, is Bioshock 2. And I'm the kind of person that didn't believe this until I experienced it myself. Let's dive right on in. And that's a pun, because the main character is a diving suit.
A sequel to Bioshock totally makes sense. The original practically came out of nowhere and blindsided everyone, so why not try to recreate that success? But in attempting to recapture the magic of the failed utopia of Rapture, the people at 2K Games neglected to deliver satisfying innovation to the franchise. Sure, when Bioshock 2 released in 2010, it included some new stuff, such as different environments and more abilities. But on the whole, this apple didn't fall very far from the tree. In fact, it still might be stuck on the tree somewhere, like maybe on one of those branches or in a bird's nest. Bioshock 2 received favorable reviews from the majority of critics, but many were left unsatisfied with the game's many reused concepts and assets. Let's be real for a second, okay? Bioshock 2 feels more like Bioshock 1.5 in a lot of ways. Plenty of sequels end up feeling like rehashes, which is usually fine with me. But when it comes to something as prolific as the original Bioshock, the lack of variation in the follow-up stings a bit. I don't think anyone considers Bioshock 2 a bad game by any means, but when you measure it against the expectations built up by the original, it's crystal clear that the sequel falls significantly short of its potential. At least that's how I felt when I played this game a few years back. But I'm ready to give it another shot, which will be pretty easy thanks to the Bioshock Collection on PS4, which collects the entire Bioshock franchise thus far into one nifty collection, complete with graphical remasters for the first two games. At first glance, completing Bioshock 2 seems like it'll be an uncharacteristically smooth ride. All of the multiplayer content from the original release has been gutted. Thank you, God! And aside from a few grindy trophies, the achievements appear to be pretty simple. However, there's the matter of the game's multiple endings. Bioshock 2 reportedly has 6 different endings, which means that I have to beat the game at least 6 times. Nothing is ever simple on this show, is it? I'm gonna try my hardest to go into this game judging it on its own merits, but playing any game 6 times in a row is a surefire way to make it seem stale. I want to like this game, but I don't think I can if I need to complete it that many times. Damn you, cruel hand of fate. Why must you torture me with your video game-based quagmires? How many times does Dr. Malcolm have to warn us against doing things just because we can, instead of wondering if we should do them in the first place? There's a big difference between creating the first-person shooter and creating dinosaurs by recombining DNA sequences, but the end result is the same. Okay, well, not really, but what I'm getting at is that Bioshock 2 ends up feeling like obligatorily explored territory, instead of a fully deserved sequel, like Jurassic Park 3. Fuck that movie. Our story begins just a couple of years before the events of the first Bioshock. Our main character, known as Subject Delta, is actually the very first Big Daddy to form a bond with a little sister. Also, his helmet looks like Bomberman in a diving suit, so that's what I'm going to imagine from now on. It's just another day of daddy-daughter Adam harvesting from splicer corpses. Ugh, gross. But when the little lady runs into some bad splicer dudes that are looking to jack her Adam, Big Daddy comes in swinging like a mama bear. That is, until he's bopped with a mind control plasmid that leaves him all docile and open to suggestion. Enter Dr. Lamb, who explains that Subject Delta's tiny partner is actually her daughter, who goes by the name of Eleanor. This raises several critical questions, but before any of them can be answered, Dr. Lamb commands the Big Daddy to shoot himself in the head with a pistol, do not pass go, do not collect $200. Fast forward 10 years later, and Delta is resurrected with some telepathic prodding from a now grown-up Eleanor. But she's still Daddy's little girl and is now dedicated to helping Delta navigate through the chaos that was once the city of Rapture. It seems that Dr. Lamb has taken over the place at some point during the past 10 years, but only God knows why. There have got to be better places to live than a failed utopia under the sea. But she's apparently been kidnapping children from all over the world and transforming them into a brand new generation of little sisters. Now, with the help of good old Dr. Tenenbaum and the disembodied voice of his illegitimate daughter, Subject Delta's got to reunite with Eleanor before the link between them withers away completely, killing him yet again. But if he can be revived once, can't he be revived again? Uh-oh, no time for questions, too many bullets, go. While trying to find Eleanor does provide a strong sense of purpose, we're still missing a compelling main character and plot here. First off, there's the fact that Delta is a far less relatable protagonist than the previous playable character Jack. Sure, we don't know much about Jack at the top of his game, but we do know that Delta is no more than a boring, soulless robot. Well, maybe not soulless, he does care about Eleanor, but that's literally it. For as long as we're aware of the character, he's got no dreams, no everyday struggles, nothing to make me care about him. Piloting an automaton rather than a human being with feelings just isn't as satisfying. And then there's the plot, which goes into great detail about tons of events, settings, and characters that have always been around, but we never met during our first trip through Rapture. More information is great, but it's not like the thing I enjoyed about the original Bioshock was getting the answers to all the mysteries presented. Quite the contrary. What I enjoyed was how the game allowed me to piece things together based on the clues one can find within the game. In Bioshock 2, there's no mystery left. The first game ended with us getting a full look behind the curtain, and now, things aren't nearly as impressive or intriguing. It's like the difference between The Matrix and its sequels. A big part of what made the original so great was how it made you question things, rather than giving you all of the answers and then giving you some more answers later on. But hey, the visuals in this game are just as impressive as the first Bioshocks, but that's probably because they are the visuals from the first Bioshock. It's certainly nice to revisit such an iconic location as Rapture, but you can definitely tell that they recycled a lot of the same stuff from the first go-around. Things appear a lot more chaotic and in disrepair since the first game, which is certainly different, but it unfortunately skews the careful tonal balance of the original Bioshock established. One of the coolest parts of that game was the juxtaposition of the grim shambles of current Rapture with the arrogantly optimistic relics of past Rapture. Now, everything just looks like crap. Now, I don't want to make it seem like there isn't anything new to the game. Playing as a Big Daddy definitely has its benefits, including being able to traverse the ocean floor unharmed, letting us stop around outside. And another highlight was Andrew Ryan's amusement park, complete with animatronic-based propaganda. That's my favorite kind of propaganda. Not to mention the fact that this game looks better than ever after its remastered facelift. Bioshock 2's sound design is still top-notch. You still got your lo-fi 1950s tunes blaring eerily from unseen speakers, with the sound quality changing depending on your current acoustic environment. That, along with the collectible audio diary clips, helped to make this game just as immersive as the original. But ultimately, I feel like some of the biggest problems with Bioshock 2 were summed up in this quote by its director, Jordan Thomas.
Where do you go with this? How do you bring people back to an experience and terrify them and shock them in a way that they're not expecting, but also fulfill the many expectations they're projecting onto it?
The creators were trying to figure out how to bring people back instead of asking if it's worth bringing people back to it. I get it, when you're in the video game industry, you need to make video games and their more successful sequels. But when you commit to making something, regardless of what you have to offer with your creation, you can end up with some uninspired stuff. There's still a tale to be told here, but this tale's far less interesting than the previous one. The first Bioshock only showed players exactly what was needed and nothing more. And although the ideas in Bioshock 2 are cool, I'm not sure if they warrant an official sequel. Look, Subject Delta is fine and all, but how can he grow? What could he possibly have to learn? He's just Big Daddy Bot 6000, and he definitely won't tuck you in and read you a bedtime story. Unless that story is just some lines of code or something. I could see that. The good news is that if you've played the first Bioshock, you're already more than familiar with how Bioshock 2 works. The bad news? This game skims out hard when it comes to fresh features. The most drastic difference between this game and the last one is the fact that we're now playing as a hulking, nautical badass that's powered by raw, seething paternal instincts. You'd think with that kind of playable character, the developers will allow themselves to run wild while designing new abilities. But instead, Subject Delta plays disappointingly similar to the last guy to shoot his way through Rapture. Just like good old Jack Ryan, Delta's got weapons, plasmids, and tonics to beef himself up. And although there are a few new versions of each in Bioshock 2, there aren't nearly enough new toys for my tastes. One of Delta's most unique assets is his signature drill, which he uses to solve problems. And by solve problems, I mean eviscerate. And by eviscerate, I mean make dudes inside come on the outside. The drill's coolest moves require fuel, which is a little hard to come by, but you can always use it for melee purposes if you're in a pinch. Using the drill as one of your main weapons is tough as balls, but it's often worth it simply because it's one of the few ways in which the game makes you feel like an actual Big Daddy. The Rivet Gun is another new weapon that's also too damn big to be wielded by mere mortals. It fires rivets like bullets and also lets you set up defensive perimeter traps. It's not bad, but the weapons are hardly the most memorable arms that Bioshock has to offer. That honor undoubtedly goes to plasmids, which still grant your character powers that are ripped straight from the pages of Silver Age comics. But the sheer lack of innovation to the plasmid system in Bioshock 2 is a fucking tragedy. It was great to see almost all of the previous plasmids return from the original Bioshock, but I was expecting a lot more new variety in plasmid power. Sure, we got a couple new ones, but the only one that's any fun is exclusive to one of the game's DLC sections. Gravity Well lets you create super cool mini black holes, but you can't do that in the main game. What gives? Now, the puzzle system has been fully replaced since the last game. If you were one of the many players that was driven somewhat insane by the glut of repetitive pipe puzzles, then rejoice, they are nowhere to be seen in Bioshock 2. However, what we've got instead are overly simple QuickTime events that show up just as frequently. You gotta pick your poison, guys. You have to stop the moving needle in the right spot in order to hack things successfully. It's not the most inspired or fun mechanic, but I will say this. At least this dial puzzle actually takes place in real time, leaving the world around us unfrozen while we solve it. There's greater risk here, which means more fun, but not much fun. Not much. Speaking of not much fun, there's a brand new mechanic in Bioshock 2 that quickly overstays its welcome. When you encounter little sisters throughout Rapture, you've still got the option to either save them from their squalid life of atom scavenging, or murder them in cold blood for the maximum yield of Adam, you heartless bastard. But in order to even earn the right to free them, you're first gonna have to join the Babysitters Club. When you adopt a little sister, she'll ride on your shoulders until you find a fresh, juicy corpse that's ripe with Adam. It's like you're a real Big Daddy, and Adam Sandler's not even around to bother you. But things go sour once you set her down to do her thing. Doing so initiates a brief horde mode in which you have to defend your little sister and yourself from repetitive waves of desperate splicers. If you're playing this game, then I hope you like this mechanic because it happens a lot. They could have easily spiced things up by including more types of tasks to complete while your sister is busy, but no! Look, I know I'm a big daddy, but I didn't sign up for this. I don't want to be a parent. This shit's boring. And it's not like the enemies are exciting to fight either. They're the same group of mobs formed from the first time around. They don't have anywhere to go. It's not like they can just move out of Rapture or anything, so you'll end up seeing the same enemy types over and over and over and over again until you genuinely hate everyone. Yet there are a couple of new enemy types, including Brute Splicers, who aren't Incredible Hulk levels of strong, but more like a Mr. Hyde strong. Like, they wouldn't be able to hang against the Juggernaut, but I can see them giving Scotland Yard a hard time. And the coolest new foes are the Big Sisters, who are actually the previous generation of Little Sisters all grown up. This right here is the best narrative aspect of the game. We get to witness the tragic fate of characters that we actually encountered in the first game and actually cared about, and then interact with them in a very meaningful way. But don't feel too bad for those chicks, cause man, they're mean as hell. They're extremely mobile versions of the traditional Big Daddies, complete with projectiles, a chilling shriek, and the ability to ride you like a spider monkey. But you know, I can't help but wonder why the developers didn't include more new enemy types. I'd even taken a stupid ass sea monster or something. Fuck it, put Aquaman in there. The 2 DLC packs from the original release of Bioshock 2 are included here in the Bioshock Collection, and they come in 2 different flavors. The first one is known as the Protector Trials, which unfortunately are exactly what they sound like. If you thought you'd escaped the babysitting sequences once you've beaten the main campaign, woo! You thought wrong. They're the same horde encounters from before, only this time you've got to complete them with specific loadouts of weapons and abilities that change depending on your selected trial. It's like the game keeps asking, but can you protect this little sister with these items? And the answer is yes. Yes, I can. Yes, I can always, goddammit. There are 24 trials of varying difficulty, but your final grade is based on how much Adam your little sister manages to gather by the end. While you only need an A grade in every trial in order to unlock the corresponding trophy, there is an A+ grade out there. And since I'm the completionist, I was forced to get those too. Despite the challenge of having your abilities restricted, by the time you finish the game and get to the DLC, the last thing you want to do is protect the little sisters. Sorry, little ladies. The second round of DLC is more of a mini campaign, known as Minerva's Den. You take control of yet another prototype Big Daddy known as Subject Sigma, whom we know and care even less about. Yay! While this mode does offer some interesting and unique features, they feel pretty bare minimum. There's only 1 new plasmid, the aforementioned gravity well, 1 new weapon type, and only 2 new tonics. Sure, there's a handful of new enemies, but they're too little too late. Look, I don't expect a whole new game out of DLC, but the fact that Minerva's Den also feels like an auxiliary mode only accentuates the fact that the main Bioshock 2 campaign has the same damn issue. This DLC was their opportunity to try some new radical stuff, and they didn't take it. It's like they had the chance for an extra credit assignment, and they just handed in a paper they copied from the internet. I'm not a dummy. This is not your best work. I have Google. Once again, all the trophies for this game are blissfully manageable. Many of them will pop naturally as you play, and the ones that you have to go out of your way for aren't anything to really worry about, like whacking animatronic Andrew Ryan with a golf club. But there's absolutely no way around the game's 6 different endings. The ending you get depends on what you choose to do with the little sisters you encounter, and whether you choose to spare or kill the critical NPCs around Rapture. Now, there's no trophy or anything for seeing every single ending, but I gotta do what I gotta do. Now, we don't detail spoiler sections anymore on the show, and even though all of you complain about it, you vocal minority, my data shows none of you were watching it. But in order to prove beyond a shadow of a doubt that I did indeed beat this game 6 times in a fucking row, I'll show you the 6 endings simultaneously right now.
The Rapture phase is over, but have you felt regret?
So if you're still scared of spoilers and don't want to ruin it for yourself, just focus on the video of the cute animals playing in the center of the screen. Just look how cute they all are. My heart is melting. Bioshock 2 is honestly a fine game, and it might even be better than most, but it suffers simply due to the fact that anyone who's played the first one knows what Bioshock 2 could have been. The sheer amount of reused material is disappointing, especially when you consider the evidence that the developers are more than capable of offering compelling new gameplay. You can find the littlest nuggets of brilliance all over this game, but they're just not enough to make a big enough difference. We were supposed to be so damn big. We were big daddies. We were supposed to make everything right. You are the worst daddy ever, Subject Delta. I'm gonna go live with Big Mama.
Not in Big Mama's house!
Never mind, I'm fine where I am. I take that back. Never mind. No. No, 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 no. The disappointment just does not stop with this one. For completing everything that Bioshock 2 has to offer and unlocking that illustrious platinum trophy, you get a big fat goose egg. It figures, but that being said, I couldn't imagine anything they could have given me to make me want to play more after beating the game 6 goddamn times. Now, it's not like the game was ever that difficult to begin with, even on the toughest setting, but having to fight off that many waves of splicers and having to do that many QuickTime events has undoubtedly taken its physical toll on me. I've got a doctor's appointment later on this week. I'll let you guys know how that goes. Fingers crossed that it's just hypertension. While completing Bioshock 2, there were 19 deaths, 6 full campaign playthroughs, 36 A+s earned in the Protector trials, 54 trophies unlocked, 34 hours of total playtime, and just 5 more seconds of that puppy and that kitten, because god damn are they cute. How do I put this? Bioshock 2 has too much Bioshock 1 in its blood for its own good, never truly managing to climb out of its predecessor's shadow. While the general story, aesthetics, and mechanics are all enjoyable, they don't offer enough freshness and variety to be truly remarkable. When you add that on top of the repetitive gameplay and utter lack of any real completion rewards, you've got yourself a truly disappointing entry in the Bioshock franchise.
Bioshock 2 is that game. It is that game that everyone in unison said was not great, and all of us played it, and wow, I did not think that statement could be more true. There are so many things wrong with this game that I was very, in fact, disappointed. However, going back to what makes a Bioshock game Bioshock, the game does that very well, and that should not be punished for what the game is. So, with that in mind, my friends, I give this game my completionist rating of play it.
Play it!
That's all the time we have for today, guys, so please, as always, let me know what you thought about today's episode somewhere on the internet. If you want to support the show in any way possible, you can check out patreon.com/thatonevideogamer. Every dollar towards the show helps us make the show that much better, and we're really happy to have a community there. It's going to be getting a huge revamp soon, so those of you who are on Patreon who are supporting us, you're going to get a lot more benefits coming. It's going to be a great time, I promise you that. As for me, I'll just be sitting here in this chair, admiring you, the viewer at home. Now, if you excuse me, a staring contest. You didn't think you'd last this long, did you? Neither did I. Fuck, the lights hurt me. Sorry. I lost.